anyways, let's dedicate this learning to Refuah Shlema Palan Chaya Baserach, Chaim Shol Ben Sarah, and I guess all of, maybe in schools of my daughter, she should have her chasana whenever that's going to happen.
This of you for making the.
All right, B'ez Hashem. Okay, and all of Klal Yisrael. Okay. So we started kind of Kuf Mem, but we're going to begin again with Kuf Mem. But before the point of Kuf Mem, 140, we said that, right? We went back to the ideas that we learned kind of a long time ago, that Hashem runs the world with two different, what's the word, hanhagas, two different, let's call them providences, right? One that's hanhagas hamishpat, providence of justice, which depends on reward and punishment, and one is hanhagas hayichud, which guides everything towards eradication of evil and perfection of the world. Okay, so those are the two simultaneous tracks that are running in this world, and that's what he's going to drill down to as it relates to evil and all of that. Okay, now he told us also last time that we have to look at, when we're discussing hanhagas hamishpat, justice, reward, and punishment, we have to look from two perspectives. From the perspective of Hashem, who's who is the judge and the punisher, right, and the rewarder, and then from the perspective of the recipient, that's us, right. And then he said, but from the perspective of Hashem, there are really two levels, right. There is the perspective of kind of justice, and then there's a perspective when the justice is not able to kind of fully be brought out because it will lead to extinction. Then Rahmanas kicks in and prevents any kind of extinction. Okay, that's basically what we learned last time. So 2 points, just points of elaboration. We see something similar in the Midbar, right? When Klal Yisrael, we had part of this week's parsha, Shlach, right? Shlach. So Shlach, we have the spies, and the spies come give a bad report. Hashem says, okay, for this Aveira, you can't go into Eretz Yisrael anymore. Comes the people the next day and says, no, let's go. We're going to go. You're right, we made a mistake. We're going to go now, and we're going to march to Eretz Yisrael. And Moshe says, sorry, you lost that. That opportunity doesn't exist anymore, right? So we see, what I'm just trying to hear is that right, the justice system, so to speak, right? We said that it's a self-calibrating justice system, right? So in essence, he told us that even though our actions don't influence Hashem directly in any way, shape, or form, we cannot contribute anything positive to Hashem. We cannot do damage to Hashem from our averos. At the same time, what do we impact? We impact, let's call it the relationship or the justice system that Hashem put in place between us and Him, right? And so He put in the justice system, and so by not listening to Him, by sending out the miraglim, the justice system shifted to a different level now. The option of going to Eretz Yisrael is no longer on that level. We had to now fix that option through going through the desert. The option of going to Eretz Yisrael was no longer on that level, right? So that's point number one. All right. So we're talking about that this justice that is forever equilibrating as it goes up and down, right? If we do more mitzvahs, so there are new potential opportunities open up, and as we do more averos, there's more potential opportunities get closed and more avera opportunities open up. Okay, so that's on the first part. And similarly, we see a few times in the Midbar when Hashem tells Moshe, let me destroy them, right? Let me destroy them. And Moshe comes out with the Gimel Midos or some other forms of Gimel Midos in different, right? And Hashem, and he says, wow, the Egyptians will say, how did you take them out, destroy them, right? These are just all ways of expressing that at some point, the total destruction is not an option, and some other alternatives have have to be arranged. Okay, fine. So that's all from last time. Okay, let's come back to Kuf Mem. So Omar Aseichel. So this is the first like an introduction. Is gonna actually let me go back even before that. However, I have to first initially I have to present to you a certain hakdoma that is necessary to the general things that we're going to explain after that. This hakdoma, this introduction, is very clear to people who are accustomed with wisdom and their proofs. Okay, so it's kind of this very strange this addition that he tells you that this hakdoma is very clear to people who are accustomed with wisdom, right? That usually tells me that the thing that's going to be complicated, that's going to come, is going to be very complicated. Mm-hmm. Okay, because if he's telling me, listen, I want you to know this is very clear. If you know what if you'd be on the level, which means that chances are I'm not on the level, and it's not going to be very clear. Okay, but he's going to. I'm saying this now because he's going to repeat that line again on the next paragraph. So he's going to reiterate that point. So I'm not sure why he's drilling it. So Omar Neshama Omar Seichel Harav Agodol Haramba. Okay, which is again also an interesting introduction to the Rambam. We mentioned this before. I'm going to say it again. There's no other Rishon that is quoted here. The only thing that's quoted here is Zohar, Gemaras, Midrashim, right? And the only Rishon that is quoted here with a very fancy introduction is a Rav Agodol Harambam. The Rambam, Rav Agodol Harambam, was in the world is known as a rationalist. Not so much in the word in the same world as Ramchal. People presume that those two people kind of habitate different universes. One is mysticism and one is rationalism. I mean, clearly, right, Ramchal's efforts here are to unite the two worlds, right? He's speaking Kabbalistically everywhere, and yet he's not utilizing any of the Kabbalistic terminology. He's doing very rational, right? He's rationalizing the system which is all based on Zohar, Kabbalah, and all that stuff, but he's using only like very rational, kind of logical, step by step. Okay, so could be that's why he's specifically focusing on the Rambam, and this is the second time I think, the third time that he's brought the Rambam. Well, he initially started with the Rambam with the 13. You'd given me this, then he brought the Rambam by the Kaichavim. Now he's bringing the Rambam again. So could be he's specifically bringing the Rambam in order specifically to focus on the rationalist thing, or as I personally always believe that the Rambam is not as anti-mysticism as people make it out to be. I wish I could have had the time to really do a whole PhD thesis on this, but okay. Anyways, moving on. So Harav Agodol Rambam Zichron L'Bracha and Yisoyrel Al Torah Yelad. So he was he was moved to discuss the epithet of Yolad, being begotten or born. Hanimtza b'ksuvim, that's written in the ksuvim, ne'atak l'dvorim asher ein haleida behem miyuchedes, which is applied to things that is not really the terminology of birthing is not really appropriate for them. V'omar zal, Mar Nebuchim, Yeloid, something that's born, hushola zoy samila. This word is often borrowed. Lihamtsoyis advorim hativim, to bring about other natural things. For example, beterem harim yilodu, before the mountains were born. It's also borrowed for originating some kind of thoughts, right? So just like mountains, so birth is a biological process that applies to living things, but it also borrowed to any kind of natural occurrences, and similarly also intellectual occurrences, something that is logically necessary, from step by step, from deus and askomas, that would be called a birth. Something that is logically derivative of one to the other. For example, V'yola Sheker, this will give birth to Sheker, to falsehood. Umimenu noimer, ubiyaldei nochrim yaspiku, right? Amongst the conceptions of nochrim, they yaspiku. I think again we looked it up already. But anyways, v'hutak haTorah zela machshova. So good. Now the Ramchal is speaking. So v'hutak haTorah zela machshova. So this adjective, this description is borrowed or is applied to machshava. Who v'chol mizdamim loy. Not only the concept of birthing, but everything that's similar to it. V'hainu. What do I mean? Just like something that's new and originated. Nishal toyer haleda. We borrow the term of birth. Kein adover ha'oimid b'koyach lotzeis. So too to something that is just in potential to be brought about, but not yet come about, but its potential to be brought about, alapoil, nashil haheroin. We will borrow also the concept of conception, right? So not only birth, we will extend the metaphor to include other elements like conception. Ukidivri akosov atzmoi, hara omal v'yola sheker, right? So he takes the same pasuk that the Rambam brought, but he's showing that in that very pasuk it also discusses conception, the conception of deceit and the birth of falsehood. Once to something that you could apply one action, meaning one set of terminology, and you can also then extend the metaphor to all of the other details. However, we know that all logical counsel that is brought about through correct, proper reasoning, that those will have its moilidim. Moilidim meaning the things that give birth to it, right? Every again, in plain English, every logical thought that we arrived at through logical, proper derivations, it must come about from some other source, right? From some other thought, right? So I forget my own terminology right now, but every statement of fact must come from some other statement of fact, which is its what is called molideho, its progenitor, I guess, right? So good. So then, in the progenitor, the new statement of fact which comes out from the progenitor is really already in the progenitor in potential. Before we even derive it from it, it's already there in potential. But when we do derive it, then it comes out from its potential to its actuality, right? So again, what did he say here? He said here two things. Number one, I'll say three things. Number one is that the concept of birthing can be borrowed as a metaphor. Now, what he's trying to say really is a little different. Meaning, what's the difference between birthing and, let's say, building?
Yeah.
Right? What are we talking about? Like, what is it? Who needs all of this? Why is he saying this? Because the difference with birthing is that the difference between birth is that the thing that comes out, the new child, like he said, was developed directly from within the parent. Unlike building, which is just something that you brought and you constructed on top of this, right? So birthing is unique to living things. But so you could say, okay, we're borrowing it. Generally, if I tell you the mountains were born, you would say, okay, that's just borrowed language. You're just doing poetically. You don't mean anything by it. You're just borrowing it to make it pretty, right? So Ramachal is saying, no, that's not what I'm talking about. When it comes to machshava, when it comes to thought, we're not just borrowing it because it's pretty. We're borrowing because it's illustrating something. What is it illustrating? It's illustrating that the concept of new thought coming from another thought is similar to birthing in a sense that the so to speak the seed of thought of the new thought is already lying in its previous thought. Okay? And that's why specifically we want to use the metaphor of birthing because it illustrates, accurately. Actually, it's not just a borrowed term, but rather it's an accurate description of what's going on. Right, exactly. Okay. Well, no, not exactly. Because zaradilas misil is more like it's something new that popped into your head. And what he's saying, there's really nothing new. Each new thought must have a progenitor, and so it already lives in that progenitor in potential, and it just came out in actuality. Okay, good. Let's keep going. And not only that, but rather since shekol dover shemishtalim, that anything that is perfected, hine shleimusoi dover noisaf al mitziyusoi. So here's the thing. He says that anything that's perfected, the perfection is a secondary quality to its existence, to its essence, right? Because you could potentially, you could imagine a thing existing in its imperfect form, and you could also imagine it existed in its perfect form. So you see that the essence of the thing is separate from the perfection of the thing. Okay? Now, I have a question about that because, as far as I understood what Ramchal told us, no, maybe not. Meaning the only reason why the essence of the thing exists separate from the perfection of the thing is because Hashem went out of his way, so to speak, to create a world where imperfection is possible. So I'm not sure on which level he's talking about. Meaning in reality, as far as HaKadosh Baruch Hu is concerned, imperfection cannot exist. Right? Only perfection can exist. How could a perfect being create imperfection? Only because HaKadosh Baruch Hu went out of his way and created a world such that essence is separate from its perfection, right? So that's why we can think of them as two separate properties and so two separate processes. But in reality, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu's perspective, it's not so. So again, maybe that's what he's going to. I'm not sure yet. But right now, what he's saying is, at least in the world that we have today, the existence of something, its essence, is not necessarily the same thing as its perfection. That's a separate quality. It says because it's possible limotze that something could exist zulas hashleimusahu without its having been perfected. Amna yegiyoy el sibas hadover hahu shnei dvorim. However, hold on. Amnam yegiyoy el sibas hadover hahu shnei dvorim. Amnam yegiyoy el sibas hadover hahu shnei dvorim. Second. What is it saying over here? Oh, okay, right. So he's going back, he's going back to what he just is connecting now to the thing that he just said before, that every new idea is a result of the potential of the progenitor, right? So he's saying, so now that he tells me that essence and perfection are two separate things, so now he connects the two together and says, Amnam yigiyai el sibas hadover hahu. I don't know why the word yigiyai is confusing me, but as from the perspective of the sibas hadover, which is the cause of this thing, which is shnei dvarim, meaning there are two separate entities. From the perspective of the thing that's of giving birth to this new thing, there's two separate concepts. The hainu himotzoi v'hashlamosoi, which is its existence and then its perfection. Okay, so in other words, again, let's talk about from a technical perspective, your work, right? You want to create something new. Let's say you have a product, so you have created a what is it called? Minimally viable product. You have such a thing. Minimally viable what?
POC.
What's POC?
Proof of concept.
Proof of concept. Proof of concept is just like a prototype. But I'm not talking about a prototype. I'm talking about you have something called a minimally viable product, which is like basically it's the minimal level that you got to get to in order to launch the product, right? Minimal. Once you launch it, okay, then you got, you're gonna fix this feature, you're gonna fix that feature, you're gonna have bugs, but those bugs will get fixed over time by update 1.7321, whatever, right? But the point is, at some level, you have a minimally viable product, right? And then at next stage, you have its perfection, right? So that's what he's talking about. So there's two, from the perspective of the progenitor, there's two separate stages. There's the minimally viable product stage, and then there is the get it to complete product stage. Okay? So that's what he's saying. So Amna Migiyo, from the effort, El Sibas Hadover, which is from the perspective of the cause of the thing, Shnei Dvarim, these are two separate things, the Hainu Himotzo, its existence, Vashlamose, in its perfection. Ki Hasiba HaMehaves, Hi Hasiba HaMeshalemes, Umasmedas Akiyum. Because you have to take into account that the thing that is bringing about the other thing, or let's call it the cause that's bringing about the thing, it is the same source that's also bringing about its perfection, and it's also the thing that's giving it maintenance. It's maintaining its existence. Therefore, because the perfection of the outcome is a result of the perfecting force that comes from the cause. That makes sense? I don't know, again, putting a lot in a strange, right? Meaning, let's say, I don't know, again, maybe I have to, let's go back to the way we spoke about the hashpah, right? If everything comes about the hashpah, so the hashpah can be mashpia in two stages. The stage that's, like we said, a minimally viable product, but it's the same hashpah when it's fully released that gives you the perfect product, right? So the same, not in a, again, I don't know how to say this without kind of using these, spiritual, less than rational descriptions. But just like if you remember in Nefesh HaChaim, right, he spoke about that the creation is not like something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu just created and there it is, but rather it's more like a movie projector that's constantly right, sending light, so to speak, to keep it going. So the perfection of creation is in the same life-giving juice that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu is providing. It's just the question is, you turn on the faucet stronger, it'll become more perfect. You turn the faucet weaker, it becomes less perfect. So on one hand, he's saying that the perfection, the existence and perfection are two separate ideas, right? On the other hand, he's saying, but they both stem from the same source. It's just the only question is how much output the source is putting out, right? The more output, the more perfection. The less output, the less perfection. Okay, so that's his thing. So he calls these things Siba and Mesoivev. So Siba is the cause, Mesoivev is the outcome. So that's what he's saying. He's saying that Ki Hasiba HaMehaves, the Siba that brings it about, Hi Hasiba HaMeshalemes, this is the same Siba that perfects it. Umasmedes Hakim, and the one that also maintains its constant existence. Shehein Hishtalim HaMesoivev, because the Mesoyev, the outcome, right, the outflow, is not perfected, Ela Shleimus Hailedas Asiba, but only through the perfection of the birthing of the Siba. And when the Siba puts out whatever it's able to put out, then the thing that results is also perfected in all of its perfection. And again, he repeats, all of this is simple. So somebody who had tread upon many ways of wisdom.
The only question is, as soon as perfection achieved, see what should cease to exist. With perfection, by definition, something independent.
Oh, that's a beautiful idea.
Does it require input anymore?
Just perfection is impossible because only he is perfect. Okay, fine.
Right, so could be, because right now I think that's the only the only working answer right now is that that's the one thing that's absolutely
So this one of those theories is the theory.
right, because if it's the only being dependent on something else is in imperfection. Imperative is perfection. So then the only real imperative is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, all perfection will be anyways not so perfect. Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's keep going. Let's see. Again, we'll come back maybe. Va'amnam kvar shamat l'mayla. However, you heard already above. Heyos kol inyonei hanimtsoyos miskashim ze bezeh. That all aspects of those things that exist are interconnected with each other. Ad shekulam nimshochim ze acher zeh. That they are all emanated or brought down one after another. V'noyladim ze mizeh. And they are born from each other. What that means. In what sense they are born from each other, I don't know. I don't see any note. Do you have any note on this? I don't see any note on my end. What does that mean? What does he mean? He just give us a whole speech how being born from each other is, very specific, gives you a very specific idea. Okay, but what does that mean, that everything is born from everything? I don't know what he wants to say.
The chain.
Okay, I understand the chain, but I don't really. It's not a. It's not. I don't see it as a one chain, right? At some point, the chain. So, but he's saying all of these things are interconnected, right? It's all one big ecosystem.
Okay, because
so does that mean
they all start from some point?
Okay, so
if you start digging at the end, it all starts from the same source.
So he doesn't mean really v'noledim zeh mizeh. He's not saying that I'm born from a butterfly that's flying in Brazil. He just means within each tree, so to speak.
Yeah, but maybe like your parent who's studying butterflies goes to Brazil and meets the other scientists and them. Yeah, so because they went to search for those crazy butterflies, they met each other and
if that's what it means. Okay, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Everything.
I don't know. Okay, I don't know why that's necessary for him. If he said miskashim zeh mizeh, I understood. But then he adds nimshochim zeh acher zeh v'nelodim zeh mizeh. I don't know what he adds with this. Okay, but let's keep going. V'kulam biyachad kesher echad. They are all together as one knot. U'metzius klal echad, and one general existence. She'ena nishlam ela b'kol aprotim ha'ela. That is not perfected except with all of these details together. Right? So he said, right, the perfection can only come about through a total coexistence, total cooperation, total elevation. Okay. Ubezet tolui yofloi v'shechluloi shel ha'olam. And that is one of the dependencies, of one of kind of aspects of the beauty and the completion of the world. Like we said this above, right? He told us this above, that perfection on a general level, when everybody is interconnected, is greater than the perfection of any individual part. So that this gives us a lot of space to contemplate, and to go deeper in the wisdom of the Creator in His creation. Okay. Ki kol inyan asher nimtza behanhagosa yisborach. Because any idea that we discover in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's providence, neida, we will know sheyesh loy behanhaga atzma inyan koidem yichayveu, that there has to be in that idea some other idea previous to it that gave birth to it, so to speak. Vayikra loy siba umoiled, which we will call the cause and the birth giver. Vahasiba hazois, he should toilet, and this siba is the thing that gave birth to it. He should tashlim ha'inyan ha'mischayev b'noiled menu, and it is the same siba that is going to perfect it. That it's something that derived from it. Okay, this is stuff. V'zehu klal ha'koinoniyos shezacharti l'mayla, and that's really the kanoniyos. What are they called? The gears that I mentioned above.
Yeah.
Shemizgalgalim be'oilom, that are turning in the world. Mishmei hashemayim, from the heavenly heavens. Ve'atachtiyos ha'aretz, and until the bottom of the earth. Being that all that exists up above and below, hagvois v'ashvelos, higher ones and lower ones, miskashros zubezu, are tied to one another, interconnected with one another, v'noldos u'mischayvos zumizu, and they are born and are derived by definition from one another. Again, I'm still stuck on this derived by definition from one another. Just 1 second. I'm getting a little lost, but again, the only way I could conceptualize it is that we first need to focus, so to speak, on the world of thought before we focus on the world of, things.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The world of things is only an expression of the world of thought.
Okay.
Right? Like we say, Torah precedes the world, meaning the fact that there is a shore, there's an ox, is because there has to be some sort of a moving damager with horns and legs and whatever. Mm-hmm. And so so first it came up in thought, in some kind of abstract concept, and then when it translated into physical things, for whatever reason, combining all of the different thoughts that had to exist in the world, an ox was brought into this world, right? I mean, it could be a million other things, the plows and whatever million thought that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to create into the world materialized in an ox. But when we're talking about this concept of everything being interconnected, everything being born of each other, I think primarily we're focusing on the world of thought, like you said before, where one idea leads to another idea, and they're all interconnected, and they all give birth to each other, and they're logically deduced from one another, okay? And then materialized, perhaps. But we're talking about, I'm assuming we're talking about in the design first. How we're going to see in providence, it's going to be tougher for me. But just let's talk about the design first. In the design, there's a architecture, and the architecture is based on thought, and then whatever's derived from the thought, like we said, is born from it. So, and this, it tells us, is what we need to learn, so to speak, when we want to understand HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? The depth of this design, that's all we need to do. We need to follow the chain of events that bring about each thing.
Yeah, so it could be like in computer language. You know, when you write a huge code, a query, and that says us something. But from now on, the whole thing we call
As ox.
us. So from this point on, I was saying ox, but really ox is that huge formula that was written a few pages before. So we're talking in physical terms, but if you look, it's actually
Right. It could be. I mean, in the mathematical concept, there's a concept called locus. I think locus, which is basically a combination of various formulas, let's say, you can call it, that went into it, and this came up. Okay. But how does it relate? So now, how does it come back to the koinonios, the gears of in the machinery?
Because interconnections, that's what everything like interconnected.
So
I said everything's twisting. Some by bigger also smaller, but it's there. So
they're all connected.
So all twisting, yeah.
Right. So you take
exactly
you take out one small gear, and the whole ox, so to speak, fails. Your whole ox fails.
Grows him out the ears.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Again, but okay. So that's clear. That maybe it's better in the design. But he specifically is not really speaking about the design. That's the interesting part. He's speaking about Hanhaga. He's speaking about the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu guides the world. Right. So in the design, this concept is easier to understand. But once the design is in place, so Hanhaga is the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu interacts with the world. Right, again, read this again. Neida, so he says, any concept that we find in Hashem's providence, Neida, we will know that in that Hanhaga itself, there has to be some preceding idea that forced this to come about, that obligated this existence. Vayikra Siba Moilib is going to be the cause and the progenitor. Vasiba Zois Hishitoilid. And it's that Siba that brings it about. Vihishitashlim. And it's also the same Siba that's going to perfect it, that is obligatory from it. Again, that I don't understand. Ultimately, the only thing that's going to perfect it, I mean, every Siba is going to have a cause. We're going to all come down to one Siba, Sibot HaSibot, as
the poet said.
Yes, what's his name?
Ishariba.
Ishariba, yes. As Ishariba told us. Right, Sibot HaSibot. So ultimately, I'm a little bit confused as to about what each thing is going to be perfecting, and okay, let's read a little more. Okay, ubehashpia ha'odam baruch hu achas mehashpa oisov. when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mashpia, one of his hashpa'os, right? So again, we're not talking about sibot asibot. We're talking about one of the hashpa'os. Lo navchin bo mashetipol bo olam levad. We should not differentiate in it only what it acts in the world. Ela gam mash yesh kolul bechuko lehoilid on oid inyan mischayev mimena. We should also appreciate what in its nature it is able to bring about. And what it, I can't even read this. And what it is able to bring about in existence will be always with the view on what is included in it.
Okay.
So I find this understanding it correctly. So till now he was speaking that when you see a concept B, you know that concept B came from concept A.
Yeah.
But now he's saying, but when you see concept B, or you can go back to concept A, it doesn't make a difference. But at the end of the day, because it's A, B, C, it's all infinite. But when you see concept A, you should also realize that concept B is embedded in it, and you have to try to kind of dig it out from the potential and see how far it goes. Since it's all one chain, so basically he's saying if you have good glasses or a good microscope, you should be able to see all the way back into the birth of creation, and then you should also be able to see all the way in the future to the end of creation, because ultimately it's all one chain of being, and everything is interdependent. So just keep digging, and you're going to see in every bit of creation, technically you should be able to see it all, because it's all.
If you're saying you should be able to see it, you should realize it's there. Because you may not see, like A gives birth to B, B has some other letters in it. You may not see it yet, but eventually somebody will drive something.
Right. So sometimes you will be able to.
So maybe you don't have to.
I mean, the same Chelkeinu Serisech. I say Galei Hashem should reveal for us V'Bita, and we should see. But the point is, the potential to see is there. Whether Hashem will allow us to see and how much can we see, I don't know. But it sounds like he's telling us that that's part of our human ability to at least to try to analyze Hashem's actions.
But I don't think it's in your. But sometimes it takes time. You just have to know there's potential there. It doesn't mean that you like others in this generation will see that some genius will see everything with.
Right, but that's the difference. There is, what Yaakov Avinu was able to see.
Okay.
Was not the same thing that you and I can see. But what he seems to be explaining is that it's all there.
Yeah, that's understand. That's what I'm saying. I think what he's saying is it's all there. You have to know it's there. Start looking for it, work for it, but it doesn't necessarily.
Right.
It's like all there has to be open. Just
right.
Look for it.
Just
it's there.
ChatGPT has to work a little harder.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. I have to. Let's keep going. Let's finish this point. Amnam, however, im oid yirtza odom baruch hu v'yoytz min hakoyach lapoel ha'inyan hahu hamischayev. Hine gam b'oilam yifal inyan hayoyser rosham u'mitzuyun. V'amnam oid im yirtza odom baruch hu v'yoytz min hakoyach lapoel ha'inyan hahu hamischayev. However, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu would decides, right? So right now he's saying, okay, I'm looking at thing A, and I'm extrapolating the potential for B. However, now he says, okay, now, but that's the potential. Now, okay, but now let's say HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you reach to the point where HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided that whatever you saw in potential, he's actually going to bring about in actuality, right? So that's what he's saying. He will come bring about from the potential apoil to the actual that thing that you derived from logic. Hine gam be'olam yipol ha'inyan yoiser roshum umetsuyon. So then in the world, it will act out in a way that's stronger and more excellent. Because it's going to be brought about from a hashpah that was originated in action. I'm not sure. Shemitchila lo hoyo ela nishkaf levad beklal ma shehoyo nifel min hashefa harishain ve'achshav yichadish mitzius u'poil. I'm not sure. V'gam bezois, let's see. I don't know. Let me just finish the sentence and we'll try to kind of figure it out. So again, he's saying so first you figure it out from the potential, but now Kadosh Baruch Hu brought it out in actuality. So then once it comes about in actuality, it comes with much more vigor and force. Before it was only an idea that was potential, in a general way that's included in the previous idea, which was included in the original shefa. But now it is originated in actuality. In other words, what he's saying is that the potential idea is not fully fleshed out. It's never fully fleshed out. When something is brought about in actuality and becomes fully fleshed out, it's a much more of a developed and much more vigorous idea than when it was just a general direction, so general, I mean, you could argue obviously the other way around also, that just the opposite. And when it wasn't potential, it was much more unlimited. And when it actually is brought about, it actually then has to find all sorts of qualifiers and limitations. But what he's trying to say is that in potential, it's not that the entire kind of ideas fully exist in the potential, because since everything is interconnected, once it is brought about into actuality, it has all these other aspects that it has to contend with, and so it's much more vigorously kind of created. Okay, let's see. Again, and over here too, there's a differentiation between its existence, without perfection, and with perfection. All of these things are simple. To those that know the ways of wisdom and logical proofs. And this is the third time he's reiterating to me that these things are very simple, which again tells me that these things are not very simple. Okay. they do not seem to be very simple. Again, maybe it's simple to the Rambam delves into all these kind of ways of logic of Olul and Ila and Siba and Soiviv. I don't know all these things, but yeah, anything interesting? Okay, let me just finish. However, when we contemplate on the creation and in these ways, in these laws, we see lots of wisdom and depth. And then we can understand secrets, many secrets from the Torah. And then many sfeikos, doubts, and difficult questions are resolved. That are found by people who have trouble with faith and providence, people who don't understand these ways. Okay, so he's gonna provide details as we go along. But okay, so let's three times it tells us that these things are simple. And these things are simple to those people who understand logical progression of thought. Logical progression of thought. Okay, I guess we'll stop here. So what did we learn? What did we learn today? So what I understood, this is what I think I understood, is like we said before, that the universe is a collection of, how does it go? The world is a collection of facts, not things. Mm-hmm. That's a line from, what's his name? Wittgenstein. But anyways, so the world is a collection of ideas, right? And each idea is interconnected, and each idea gives birth to some element of some other idea. And everything is just a genetic program, right? Genetic interconnected program. And he tells us that it doesn't. Says it's a place for us. In other words, an opportunity for us to understand the depth and wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's creation. So if he tells us that's a place, meaning this is our gateway. This is our gateway to understanding Hashem, because the system is designed that way. Because the system is designed in such a way that one concept naturally leads to another concept, and everything is interconnected. That gives us the gate to actually understand the Bria. Meaning, had it not been so,
Right.
we would not be able
That
to
end
kind of
over.
reverse engineer anything, because we would only see that bit, let's say, and we wouldn't be able to go any further, because everything is interconnected, and because one idea naturally gives birth to another idea, and one idea has potential in it for the next idea, and it's all interconnected. That is the source. That is the so to speak, HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowing us to see the machinery. Right? He's saying very important point for us. At least, I don't know if I understand the machinery, but the point is he clearly understands that this architecture is the architecture that allows us to see things beyond what we would normally see. I mean, that's the one thing that I see clearly from the Harei Ze Lo Nemokim Rechav Yadayim. This is a place for us, wide open, harbe ma'od, very much, lizboinen ulahamid b'chachmas habayit, to think and contemplate, right? And do they? I just want to make sure. Can I see how they translate this? So they translated, all this will give us great scope to examine and deepen our understanding of all the wisdom that God has built into His creation. We will know that every element of the system that God uses to run the world has another element which precedes it, necessitates its existence. This element will be called the cause, or the progenitor. Again, we said, it is what gives birth to and then perfects the thing that must necessarily be born from it. This structure of development is what gives rise to the entire interconnected mechanism that I mentioned above, which operates from the highest heavens. This interconnected mechanism functions because everything that exists in the world, from the highest level to the lowest level, from the most level to the lowest, is connected. When God causes one of His divine emanations to transmit its influence, we need to discern not only what this emanation does in the world now, but also its latent potential to generate whatever else must emerge from it. Everything that a particular divine emanation brings about in the world is always in anticipation of the potential that still needs to emerge from it. If God goes further and actualizes its potential, the new aspect of emanation that has been actualized will in turn bring into the world a much more clearly defined, delineated reality. Until that time, this new clearly defined reality was only a potential. This is pretty much, good. What we said, just in better English, but yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.